What's up, builders? This is Raise the Bar Radio, where we talk about building wealth, raising capital, and all in all, raising the bar in your business and your life. This is the No BS podcast for capital raisers, investors, and entrepreneurs who are serious about scaling their business and living life on their own terms. I'm Seth Bradley, securities attorney, real estate investor, and entrepreneur, bringing you world-class strategies from the best in the game. If you're ready to raise more capital, close bigger deals, build a better you, and create true financial freedom, you're in the right place. Let's go. Lou, what's going on, brother? Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Seth. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here. Good to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great to catch up with you. Are you tuning in from where?
Well, in Europe still. I'm back and forth between Ireland, Germany, mostly. A little bit of time in Panama as well, because my wife's from there. But I'm in Tipperary in Ireland, horse breeding country and agricultural heartland, actually, of Europe. And at the moment, anyway, yeah. So in Europe.
Oh, awesome. That's the beauty of being on a video conference call, that you can talk to anyone from anywhere in the world now. That's the one good thing that came out of COVID, is it made it normal to do it.
Yeah. It's funny, Seth, unbelievably. Just yesterday, I was contacted actually by CNBC in the US. I'm in Europe, about the metals. And we're not talking about metals today, but, I've spoken with you before about the rare earth metals.
Yeah.
And I guess the US Chamber of Commerce is in China this week, because China is restricting the export of certain technology metals. And that's our area. And, within a day, there's like an hour after I speak with you, I'm doing an interview with CNBC on, I think it's Power Lunch or something they call it. So it's fascinating, really, how quickly you can sort of ping around the globe and find somebody and do this,
Yeah. Very cool, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to tune in with us today. And we've got a brand new thing to talk about, and we'll jump into that. But before we do, just for listeners who didn't listen to your previous episode, give us a little bit about your background and your story, just a general synopsis, man.
Sure, thank you. So I'm obviously, you can tell from the accent, I'm Irish or Scottish or Australian, but it's Irish. And I suppose you could say I'm a bit of a world traveler who has come back home specifically for this project we're going to talk about. Ireland is known as sort of the breadbasket of Europe. But yeah, I lived in Germany for 10 years, lived in Central America and traveled extensively in South America during that time. But my niche, if you will, I mean, one other business we're involved in, and my niche, what I'm looking for is always what I don't know what you might call it in the US, but we sort of call it a path of progress play here, which is if you sort of look at an industry or a product, what's happened in the last 10 years, or even a country, or even a business for that matter. If you look at what's happened in the last 10, you can sort of have a look at likely, what's going to happen in the next 10. So I'm always looking for somewhere where demand is increasing and supply is either going to be limited or subject to disruption in somehow. And that's what we will be talking. It's an agricultural product, and we'll talk more about it. But, I like to be diversified in every way. So, I have business in Germany. This agricultural product is in Ireland. I do my banking in, Belize and Panama and, different parts of Europe. And so just try to be as diversified as possible.
Right. And that's part of your kind of plan as well, right? Like to be, kind of this international man of mystery, right? Like you have different you have different ties to a couple of different countries, which gives you flexibility in case something goes wrong in one of them, right? Like, I think a lot of people were worried here for a while, and I think it's still in the back of people's minds in the United States about, the strength of the dollar, and, people were talking about getting a second citizenship and things like that. Can you speak to that a little bit about kind of, how you've done that and what your kind of thoughts and feelings are around that?
Sure. Well, my feeling always, Seth, is peace of mind. I just want peace of mind. I want to be at peace with myself and the world around me. And that's, I'm probably talking about more philosophically and spiritually as well. But also, in business or residencies or banking. I suppose it's because I left Ireland quite young, and I did live, I didn't just go on a vacation somewhere. I lived in Germany for 10 years. I learned the language. Ireland is an island, even though we're part of Europe. Continental Europe is completely different. So, and then I went to Latin America, which is a completely different, kettle of fish altogether. And I suppose it was those experiences that the perspective it gave me was that, that sounds very simple, really rudimentary, but there's good and bad. We do certain things in Ireland very well, and maybe other things not so well. In Germany, they do. They make better cars and better roads than we do. And Latin America, I think they dance better and drink better, maybe than But so yeah, what I learned is you can pick. It's a bit. Life can be a bit like a buffet, and you can pick what you like, and what you don't like, leave behind. So. The idea, I suppose the point I should make is that what I've learned is it's not expensive or difficult to be diversified. Like have your banking in different jurisdictions really doesn't cost anything. Having a second or third residency, if you do the right homework, and I'll go into more detail if you want. I have a residency still in Panama. I have 3 passports. I'm working on the 4th. And it's been a little bit of effort, but not expensive or costly. And will I ever use them? Am I worried that the world's going to end? No, but it's just that peace of mind you have when you've got these other options. That God forbid if something did happen here in Ireland or Europe, I have a residency in Panama. I have banking there. So it's just that I suppose it's like having a parachute, or a safety net that's always there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's, especially the way that things are today, and people kind of just worry about things generally, right? If you have that peace of mind, you have that, second or third option, it's just something that can kind of let you sleep at night a little bit better. It's like having a nest egg, or, having a second, third, fourth, fifth stream of income, things like that can let you sleep at night. And while other people are panicking and worrying and making, maybe even bad decisions based on that, based on those worries, you can sleep soundly and make decisions that are best for you.
Yeah, and you're not limited, if you're just, it's funny though as well. I think it's timely. I think the time has come. I mean, you see people, we were chatting earlier, being involved in multiple different industries, and, with technology, we're allowed to do that. We can reside in one country, we can do our bank in another, we can do our tax responsibility somewhere else, we can do our business. So it's probably just in the last 20, 30 years that we can move so freely. With all this stuff, only maybe 25, 30 years ago, if I wanted I couldn't really do business in Germany, but live in Ireland. It'd have to be one or the other. There was no internet, everything. So yeah, I think we're heading in that direction anyway. And it's just, there's great freedom in it and great peace of mind, even though, I'll be in Ireland for, my 2 kids there's another 6 or 8 years before they finish school. So I plan to be here, but I just have other options as well,
Yeah, that's fantastic. And speaking of diversification, I mean, your investments are very diverse, right? I mean, in the previous episode, we jumped into rare earth metals, and then in this episode, we're going to jump into something new. Before we jump into the new thing, though, give us a little update on what has changed or in your business with the rare earth metals, or if anything has changed, or how those things are going.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking, Seth. Since we spoke, actually, the big news is just in the last 60 days, I think I mentioned to you that China pretty much sort of it dominates the rare earth industry. I think really it's possible, and we understand now that China sort of saw before the EU and maybe before the US, or they understood at least that rare earths would become the backbone of manufacturing in the 21st century. And they've been, they've taken action on that. So we're in a situation now, and it's not really an economic strategy. It's more of a geopolitical strategy that China has big plans for electric cars, big plans for solar, big plans for wind. So, they've hundreds of million people. They're taken out of the poverty into the middle class all the time. So sort of thinking strategically and long term, they rightfully secured their supply of rare earths. And what happened just in the last 60 days is the US sort of initiated a sort of a block. Now, it was also supported by Holland and Japan, and they're blocking sort of the latest semiconductor technology from going to China. And in retaliation for that, China, they have, an ace up their sleeve, which is rare earths. So the West has the technology and China has the raw materials. And just in the last 60 days, China has said they're going to, effective August 1, which is a month ago, they're restricting the export now of gallium and germanium, which is two of these technology metals. That China, is responsible for 95% of the global production. So we're seeing the prices go up, and this is sort of what I talked to you about, that these metals are in demand. On a good day, you will make a nice return. But if something like this happens where China sort of weaponizes these metals economically, then you'll see prices increasing quite dramatically, which they are. So yeah, that's what's happening there. It's basically a market where there's surging demand, and you have sort of political landscapes affecting as well. So it makes for interesting, investment.
Yeah. Are these rare earth metals, are they not something that we can mine, or is it something we're not willing to mine? Like, let's say in the West.
Good question, actually. And that actually gets right to the heart of it, Seth, because despite the name rare earths, they're not all that rare. Some of them are as sort of common as copper and stuff, but there's about 8 or 10 of them that are rare, and they are available in the US. But this is what's changed dramatically in the last 30 years is the rare earths don't occur naturally. So they always occur as a byproduct of another raw material, and they're very chemically similar. So they're sort of all stuck together. So they have to be extracted and separated and then refined and processed into, high purity levels for jet engines or smartphones or whatever the case might be. So where China dominates is China is responsible for 95% of the refining. Now, there's about $390 billion available in subsidies in the US from the Inflation Reduction Act, which, despite the name, is all about energy transition. And that's all very well, except the human capital and the engineering expertise to refine rare earths is depleted it doesn't exist in Europe, and it's very much depleted in the US. Just to give you some context, there's 39 universities in China where they graduate degrees in critical minerals. So the Chinese are graduating about 200 metallurgists every week for the last 30 years. I think the US has a handful of universities. I'd say there's probably 300,000 metallurgists in China, and there might be 400 in the US, and probably none in Europe at all. So it's not just a question if they're there. It's, how do we get them into, 99.99% purity? Without the engineering expertise, we can't. Not anytime soon, anyway.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that just alone sounds like a recipe for a pretty good play for an investment. Like, there's these bottlenecks, right? Whether that's people that can refine it or the actual element itself or willingness to mine it. All these different things come into play to make it a good investment. All right, let's switch over a little bit here. Let's talk about the new investment vehicle that you talked to me about. It's an agricultural play, correct? And we're talking about truffles. We're talking about mushrooms, right? Tell me a little bit about it just to get started here. Okay,
well, truffles are in the culinary world. They're known as the black diamond of the kitchen. They're a delicacy going back to, thousands and thousands of years. Traditionally, the black Perigord, which is the Mediterranean truffle, would have originated in France, but for the last the last 100 years or so, they've been growing abundantly in sort of southwestern France, northern Spain, and Italy. So traditionally, that's where they grow, and they sort of, because the truffle, as you said, it's a mushroom that has a symbiotic relationship with a native tree, an oak tree or a hazel tree, or sometimes beech. So it's a very delicate balance, And I have invested in agriculture before, and we started. I mean a collective. There's not just me involved here, and I don't want to sound like I take credit for any of this. Really, I was just a part of a team where we had some agri-science people, and we had sort of fourth generational farmers involved. But we were looking at, there's no question that there's a climate change right now. It doesn't matter to me whether people, whatever the causes of that are. The reality is, if you talk to an olive grower or a truffle grower in Italy or France, they'll tell you the climate has changed because their harvests have been decreasing for about the last 30 to 40 years, actually, but really more so in the last 10. So we were sort of, I'll tell you, basically the agri-science partner involved in this, as a test back in 2005, they started to plant and the trees inoculated, the baby trees inoculated with the truffle sort of in the root system as a test all over, different countries, not just Ireland, England, UK, also the US. So this has been in sort of research and development since about 2005. And we got seriously involved in about 2015 when history was made, and this Mediterranean truffle was grown, here on the British Isles for the first time. So we then, with our agri-science partner in 2015, planted 1,000 trees in 5 different locations in Ireland, where I am. And one of them is about 20 minutes away from me here. They're all secret locations. I won't even tell you where they are, because they really are. They're highly valued. They're highly prized. And so it takes about 4 or 5 years, to see if you're in business. But we now are growing the Mediterranean truffle, not just in Ireland, but in other parts of the UK. But the real interesting thing, Seth, is it's just now ready for scale. And all of the farmers who were involved in the original research, none of them are going to take it to scale. The one that's local to me is a lovely gentleman. He's in his 60s, and he planted 1,000 trees really just as a retirement. His daughter works in banking in Switzerland, and so there's nobody really to take over the farm. So we're the first to do it with scale. So we're inviting in a portion of some investors in as well.
Gotcha. What are there specific? I assume there are. There are specific growing conditions where these things can prosper. Like I can't. I'm in San Diego. I can't just plant them in my backyard and wait 5 years and be a millionaire.
Well, if I hear you're growing truffles, Seth, we should have signed an NDA. We should have signed. You could try, but no, they wouldn't grow in San Diego because, there's a very delicate balance, and what you're using here is agri-science and nature. You're working with nature, and because the reason they've grown so well in the Med is just because of that balance of they get a sort of a dry season, or sort of they get a lot of rain, and then they get the dry season. And what's happened is they're getting more drought and less rain, and it's just upset the balance. So it's a very, very delicate balance. But what people wouldn't know, I think, is that truffles have always grown wild in Ireland. There was a time 500 or 600 years ago when Ireland was 85% forest, and our native tree is the oak and the hazel tree, which is the tree that's also where the fungus grows. And what happened was, when the Brits were, before, when shipbuilding was the thing, and the British Navy were, and the Spanish were, so the Brits sort of chopped down a lot of the forest for the wood for shipbuilding. So our forests were depleted. But to this day, truffles do still grow wild here, but we're doing it differently. We're only planting on land where you have like certain protein and pH levels and limestone, and then we're planting baby saplings that are already 2 years old that were inoculated with the truffle fungus, like at birth, like in the root system. And we only plant them after we see that the root system and the fungi are already thriving. So if you get it into the right soil and it's already thriving, then 2, 3, 4 years later, you'll get truffles.
Pardon the interruption, but we don't do ads. Instead, know that if you're raising capital for real estate, my law firm, Raise Law, is here to give you the expert legal guidance you need to raise capital compliantly and structure and close your deal. And if you're looking for a done-for-you fund-to-fund solution, TriVest is the industry's only all-in-one setup and fund administration solution. Visit raise.law and trivest.com to learn more. Wow, that's awesome. I think about like wine and like, you can grow it, vines in different places. Some places they grow, some places they don't. Some places they grow and the result isn't good, and some places they grow and the result is awesome. It's probably a very delicate balance between, environment plus how they're raised, how they're taken care of, and all those sorts of things.
It is 100%. I mean, first and foremost, because of angry science and technology today, we can plant baby saplings that are already, we're playing God a little bit with nature, but, it's just amazing, that you can do it. And then, the biggest threat is actually mismanagement. If you don't then manage it correctly, if you have a root system inoculated with the fungus and you have the right soil conditions, after that, then it's management and it's sort of biosecurity, meaning they have a very pungent smell. So, squirrels and pigs, and they love them. They love to eat. So you have to, you're literally, it's like protecting a bank. You have a biosecurity fence. You limit visitations to the farm. You've, special footwear and cleaning and stuff. So it's serious stuff,
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. Well, let's dive in a little bit to the kind of the investment itself. Like what does that look like for an investor? Like what are your projected returns? How does it all shape out? Like you've grown these wildly valuable truffles. And now, I guess the first step would be what's the business plan? Who are we selling these truffles to? What makes them so valuable? And then get into kind of the investor portion, like how would someone get involved and what are the projected returns?
Okay, so we sell, first of all, it's the estate that the farm is. It's called Shan Valley Estate. People can Google it. It's beautiful. It's 200 acres of North Tipperary farmland. The estate itself it's a bit like a smaller version of Downton Abbey. It's a Georgian, a 3-story Georgian home. It's over 200 years old. It's also a museum, and we have events there. And it's also a working farm, and it's a herbal farm. So we grow plants and herbs there that we have our own. We're up the value chain where we also sell those herbs for medicinal purpose, and we convert them into medicinal oils and things like that. So the location is already up and running. And what we're doing with the truffles is, for every acre, we can plant 800 trees. And so what we're doing is we're offering investors, a client, the minimum investment is $30,000, and the investor for that price gets 400 baby saplings already inoculated with the truffle fungus, and then they get the farm management included up to the first 4 to 5 years. It takes about, there'll be truffles after, bear in mind that the sapling, the baby tree is 2 years old. So after 3 years in the ground, it's already 5 years old, and there'll be truffles then, and the returns don't begin until then. But what's included in the price is all the farm management, all the implementation of the farm, the irrigation, the electricity, the hardware that's needed. So all the management right up until there is production. And then when they're producing, the investor gets 70% of the gross, and the farm management company, we get 30%. So it's a 70-30 split. Now, the great thing about the oak and the hazel is they'll produce for 30 to 40 years. So it's a long term, it's sort of, I suppose, a legacy investment, you might call it, because you won't see returns until the fourth or fifth year. But once you do, you'll see returns then for another 30 to 35 years. And they're very, very good. I mean, we have three numbers in the brochure. We looked at what price have the truffles never dropped below. So we have the very low estimate, which is they've never gone below this price. That brings in an IRR, which would be from day one of about 14%. And then the highest that they've sold for, you're looking at about 69%, but the average is about 38%. So the returns will be very, very good once production, kicks in, and then they'll maintain. We've included inflation for 30 to 40 years. I think I answered everything there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, sorry, I gave you about 6 questions there to answer in a row, but yeah, I think you covered everything. And having an IRR, which is time based, on something that has this long of a horizon and even takes 4 or 5 years to even start producing, those are really, really strong numbers.
Yeah, well, again, even one of the reasons, obviously, we like truffles because they're very, very expensive. I mean, they're a luxury product. We're about an hour from Shannon Airport here, which is the transatlantic hub between Europe and the US. So we can have truffles in the US or anywhere in Europe, or even the Middle East or the Far East for that matter, in less than 24 hours. So that's important as well. But they're a luxury item. There's huge demand for them. I mean, you know how the world is. I mean, there are, unfortunately, there's always there's people are getting richer and some people maybe are getting poorer, but the luxury, high end market and the international culinary explosion means that, there's huge demand for truffles. And also you have to factor in the fact that the harvests in the Mediterranean are less and less every year. And I mean, very, very sadly, I mean, it's an opportunity for us, but very sadly that they've done very specific scientific studies, and it's going to, over the next 50 years, the truffle harvests in the Med will decline between 73 and 100%. So literally, they will not be growing truffles there in 50 plus years from now. So that's an opportunity for us. And again, we've been working on this really since 2015, and it was only 2019, 2020 when we began to get the truffles. We knew, because there was no guarantee, but yeah, now that we're growing them, we just need to scale up.
Gotcha. And what's kind of I see that you for that minimum investment, you get X number of baby saplings. How many was that again?
400.
400, that's what I thought. Okay, 400. What's kind of the survival rate, I guess, of those saplings? Do you have kind of a percentage on that? Is it like?
Yeah, well, we expect what's happening so far is in about year 3, which is actually year 5 because of the sapling, you should get 3 of the 5 trees producing. But once you have production, once that fungi is thriving, it will just continue to grow. So in year 4, you should have 4 of them. In year 5, you should have all of them producing. Now, we also put a guarantee in the farm management contract that if any tree, if it dies or if it's not, producing truffles, we'll replace it free of charge at any time. So in the event, for some reason, I mean, we put a tree in that's inoculated and it doesn't take, then we'll just replace it. So either way, over the first 4 to 5 years, we'll get them all. And the great thing is, if you protect that soil from pests and diseases and other sort of unwelcome sort of mycorrhizal or fungi, then it will thrive. It will thrive. It'll keep, it'll spread. It's a symbiotic relationship underground between the tree and the fungi.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome to know. So like survival is not one of the things that we should consider, because if for some reason it wouldn't survive or is not producing, then it just gets replaced. So you actually are getting those full 400 saplings turning into trees that will be producing.
And once they mature and produced, and as I said, barring any pests or diseases or interference, then they'll just continue. You just protect them. You just allow nature then to do its work.
Yeah. So what are some of the risks then? What are the downsides that you can foresee if something were to go wrong? What would it be?
Well, the greatest threat is mismanagement. Literally, I mean, obviously we're doing this with scale, so it's a professional endeavor. But people from time to time, I mean, some of the test sites here, I mean, I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, and they're not that hard to manage, but people just lose interest, or the younger kids don't want to farm. But the greatest threat is mismanagement. So as long as you put in these biosecurity measures and manage, there's got to be some clearing done, there's got to be some pruning done, there's got to be tree guards. So there is a process involved in bringing them to nurturing them along and then keeping everything, neutral, if you will. That's first. Weather is always a factor in agriculture. We don't feel it's as much of a threat here because although we're for the first time growing the Mediterranean truffle, truffles have grown, or they grow here wild anyway. So the climate is right and has been right for thousands of years in Ireland. So we, and again, we'll have irrigation as well. We get a lot of rain here. It's not likely we'll need any more rain, but yeah, the agri-science will kick in there as well. And then, as I said, like, biosecurity, we call it, which is, very, very serious fencing, limited visits to the farm, special footwear if people are going up to the area, and the sort of rinse, we have a pool area where they have to disinfect before they go into, it's a very, very, very protected area from pests and from diseases or anything, that could be brought in from this to the outside, on whether that's machinery or human. So yeah, it's almost like a laboratory. I mean, you keep it very, very delicate balance. Keep it very limited on who visits, and people are allowed to visit, but they have to be properly, the feet have to be cleaned and footwear has to be worn and stuff like that. So, but at the end of the day, Seth, it's any investment really, but agriculture, the final say is in nature's hands, not ours. I mean, we like to think, I suppose, we're in the results business, but the reality is we're not. We're in the planning business, and all we can do is plan everything as well as we can. It's just like, if you planted a rose, bush out in your backyard there today, you wouldn't stand outside and will it to grow, right? Grow quick, or, we have to allow nature and the cosmos to do its work. So yeah, nature has the final say,
Yeah. No, totally understand. And, any investment has its risks, whether you're investing in truffles or real estate or any of the above. Quick question on this. Don't want to paint you like in a bad way at all, but we have had, and it's not you, of course, but we've had an influx of bad sponsors and people that are, anything from mismanaging investor capital on one end, which can happen pretty easily. And there's not a whole lot of, not a lot of bad, not a lot of bad blood there. Things happen. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we've seen everything from fraud to Ponzi schemes and all kinds of stuff lately. One thing that I always tell investors is to make sure you know who you're investing with, and make sure your investing dollars are actually getting invested where they're supposed to. Could an investor invest with you and actually go to the farm and see their saplings, or see the farm and see this business?
100%. In fact, we would rather people do. I mean, I know it's not always possible,
right?
But
of course.
But Shanbally Estate, I mean, I'll give you the website and stuff after. Shanbally Estate, it's a 200-acre farm. It's already a museum. We have events there. It's a herb dispensary, as I said, it's our farm management partner is the Duggan family. They're fourth generation farmers. They've been in Tipperary, longer than that even. So absolutely, no, of course, there's legal contracts. I mean, people get a legal contract for the purchase of the trees, and then we have a legal contract for the farm management that we're responsible for implementing the project. We're responsible for bringing the trees to Truffles to harvest. But we just had our first tour, but it was sort of Europe from Germany the 18th, 19th of August. But we will be having tours every quarter. And if anybody wants to come at any time, we'll be delighted to have them, because it's, like I said, it's like a smaller version of Downton Abbey. And we converted the stables into accommodation, because we have weddings and events and stuff there as well. It's not just a field that we bought last week,
Yeah.
So it's a big deal. I'll give you the website. The location is spectacular, and clients can, stay the night, and it's a 3-story Georgian estate house, and the bottom floor is a museum. So it's like walking into a pharmacy from 1840. All the bottles and the counter is 200 years old, And then the middle level, we've an organic vegetarian restaurant. All the food is grown on the farm. There's an old walled garden that they used to wall the gardens years ago to keep out the pests. And all the food that's served is grown on the farm. And then the top floor is accommodation as well. And the stables are being converted. So look, it's all about trust, Seth. And, I would say to anybody, if you've, myself, if I've any doubt about anything, I don't do it. I mean, just, and it might not be that somebody's a scam or a fraud, but it's just, if you're not 100% sure about it, don't touch it. But what I would recommend is people do their due diligence, because we've done ours. We've, 8 years invested in it, put a lot of time and effort into it. And, at the very least, we'd like people to check it out and see it all the way through for what it is. But yeah, we have a partner in Europe, and we're hoping to connect with somebody in North America. I don't want to name anybody here because it might not come off, but there's a few sort of marketers, and there's plenty, obviously, that we might sort of do a sort of an agreement with, where they'll, we could even have sort of investment real estate conferences on the farm, and do farm tours as well. So definitely 100%, we'd love for people to visit and to get to drink some Guinness, and they're really brave. They can swim in the Irish Sea.
Yeah. And I'm looking at the website right now. We'll drop that in the show notes, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it's making me want to get on a plane right now and check it out. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's the estate, shanbally.ie. And what I love about it's all 100% organic. We're members of the Irish Organic Association, track record, 4th generation. This is not me. I'm a part of this, but the farm management team are, they're already like growing herbs and plants and converting them to medicinal, oils and things. And this is just it's more of a farming enterprise, I suppose, than a farm. And then the other partner is the agri-science partner, which is this team of scientists who basically made history by growing for the very first time 8 years ago the Mediterranean truffle in Ireland. So there's there's a lot of professionalism and thought and effort being put into it. Yeah.
Love that, man. Is there anything else about this type of investment that I didn't ask about that I should have?
I think, Seth, you should be on CNN or something, because I think you covered everything. You really did. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you did. You definitely covered. I mean, I may have left something out, but I think it's a good foundation for somebody. If they're interested, I'll give them my email. And it's not that expensive to get to Europe, and it's a great way to mix a holiday and, come to the farm and stuff,
Absolutely. Well, since you're a repeat guest of the show, we won't go into the Freedom 4, but do you have one last gold nugget for our listeners?
I knew you were going to ask me that, Seth, and the last time you caught me off guard, so I have one ready. and I stole this from someone else, so I'm not going to take the credit. But I was listening to a guy last week, and he's sort of a big operation in Europe, and he was talking about a phrase they have in the office, and it's 1%. And they always look at each other, and when you pass them, they go 1%. And I love what it's about. It's about the idea that, in a way, it sort of comes back to what we talked about earlier, which is forget about the fact, don't think you're in the results business, you're in the planning business. And the 1% is every day try and improve every little action. I'm not just talking about work, I'm talking about family, your spiritual practice if you have one. Increase it by 1% every day. And, it's like compound interest, isn't it? That in a way, then you don't have to worry about the big picture, and the results will just look after themselves then,
Yeah. I love that, man. Always improve. I mean, you've got to take small steps to get to those big goals. And a lot of times you just need to ask yourself, did I improve 1% today? If the answer is yes, then it was a successful day. Day.
Yeah. And it's great because, if I was to try and think now, or you were to try and think now, everything you have to do in the next 3 weeks, right? You'd just be overwhelmed, right? And sometimes my head is like that. I have a meditation practice and stuff, but I watch my thoughts, and, it's a fact. It's a human condition. I don't know. There's estimates of how many thoughts do we have a day, how many are repetitive, and how many are useless. A lot of them are repetitive, a lot of them are useless. So it's good just to narrow it right down to what's the next thing I can do right now, and can I do it 1% better than I did yesterday,
Absolutely. Love that, man. All right, Lou, where can our listeners find out more about you?
Okay, so they can email me. It's Truffle Farm Invest. Sorry, it's a new website. www.trufflefarminvest.com. Or they can, if somebody from your audience wants to email me directly, it's Louis, Louis @trufflefarminvest.com.
All right, perfect, man. We'll drop all that in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on the show. Always a pleasure, brother.
Thank you very much, Seth. A pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to Raise the Bar Radio. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Keep pushing, keep building, and keep raising the bar. Until next time, enjoy the journey.